All right, good morning. Today, my name is Michael Stewart Heath, and this is my live show. And if you're catching it live, then good for you. Looks like we're live. Checking my thing. You can catch it on. The archive. But joining me today is David Arthur, someone I met. Man, I've lost count of the years. Do you remember, Dave?
15?
15 years. Yeah. 15.
2015
years.
Yeah, 2014.
Right. He's just a newbie to the battle that Paul Medore and Paul Medore and I started fighting back in the early 90s. I like to think that had we won, David, you wouldn't have maybe had to live the life you lived, but man, oh man, you fell, or in your youth, you fell into the tranny cult, and we don't need to go over all the testimony stuff. I'll try to get time to link your website, I Belong Amen Ministries. I've got it up here on the screen, but I'm not going to take time to show it. I want to focus on having a fruitful conversation for the sake of history, and hopefully that will, because it's the truth, inspire you and others to get in the battle, not for yourself, but for your children and your grandchildren, because
Amen.
If you keep sitting on your hands, we're on the verge of losing the Western civilization, not just Maine, not just the United States of America, but the West. You know, St. Augustine was in North Africa 400, 500 AD, and the violent crowd, the revolutionaries, had spun themselves up, and they were headed, they came down across Spain, across into North Africa, and they headed across to where he was in Hippo. And they ended up chasing him into the Mediterranean back to Rome. They destroyed Christianity in Hippo, where he was the bishop, the Christian bishop. And he ended up writing the book City of God, which became a kind of blueprint for the rise of Christendom in Europe in the Middle Ages. To this day, Christianity doesn't exist in North Africa. North Africa is Islamic. It never recovered. Don't think, if you're watching this show and you're a Christian, that you can continue to play around with your sexual sins.
That's it.
Because if you choose to do that, that could be the result. You know, God doesn't have any. God is God, and if He's willing to let the land of St. Augustine become Islamic, who's to say Maine can continue on with marriage, and with family, and with sexual decency, and with pornography illegal? You know, even though it isn't illegal. I mean, it should. These are things that. We've got to, these are things, right, David? These are things that we have to work on, right?
It's like the books, you know, they claim, oh, you're trying to ban books. That's such a bad thing. No, banning books is not a bad thing. Getting rid of deviant, wicked, evil crap is not a bad thing. You know, banning things, outlawing things. The only solution against the whole LGBTQ trans, queer, rainbow movement or cult, I know it's a cult, but the only solution is to actually outlaw it, ban it completely, just outlaw it. You know, we're paying attention to all of this stuff that's going on, that's on both sides being televised, but what we're not paying attention to is that the fact that Islam is rising up and taking control of major cities in this nation, and we're on the brink of the same thing happening here that happened.
But Islam, right, David? I agree with you. Of course, New York City, Minneapolis, you've got two real hotbeds of controversy between Muslims and the locals. Unfortunately, the locals don't have the clarity of thought to fight back religiously. They fight back. Americans fight back with secular, psychological, legal, and political categories that no longer work, that are empty. They're now empty. They mean nothing. They have no power. They have no power. This is a religious war. And if Minneapolis and New York City want to save themselves from coming under Sharia law, which is what will happen if Islam rises to the point of gaining political power over a jurisdiction, you end up with their theology governing your city.
Yeah.
And the reason that happens is because you don't have a theology. The reason that happens is because you're Jewish, you're Talmudic, you're revolutionary. You think you're a Christian, but are you?
Right.
You're not willing to fight for Jesus Christ. In fact, you've drank the propaganda so deep, you've taken it so deep into your belly that you don't know that the Crusades of the Middle Ages were a defensive action on the part of Europe. Europe had been pushed to the limits. They were ready to be pushed into the English Channel by the Muslims as they were rising up out of the Middle East. They had, using warfare and violence, they were spreading up into the West, north and to the West. And Christian leadership there in Northern Europe, Northwestern Europe, said, if we don't do something, we are going to cease to exist. Our religion, Christianity, in the Middle Ages, is going to cease to exist. They are going to conquer us. Islam is going to conquer us.
Yeah.
So
we need a Maccabee rise. We need more Maccabees to rise up. Is kind of like what I've just been, it's been in my head for months now. Like, we need more of these men who are willing to stand up and know that it's by any means necessary that we have to take back everything that has been perverted. I mean, that's the ultimate thing, is everything is perverted and we have to take it back.
I think, what do you think of this idea, David? We need to bring back here in Maine, you need to bring it back. I need to bring it back. People like Tim Bodnard needs to bring it back. We need to bring back the debate over sexual orientation. That's the legal phrase. That's the legal phrase that's been forced. It's been, they stuck a wedge into our Human Rights Act and they spread it out enough so that they could fit that diabolical evil, which is basically sodomy. It's the same sin that
opened the door to the whole gender identity nonsense, the non-existent gender identity nonsense, let me say. But same thing with sexual orientation. It's non-existent. There is no such thing as sexual orientation. We are all designed in one orientation, and that's what we call heterosexual.
So my belief is this. Everybody that takes time to watch this thinks that the term sexual orientation refers to them. They think that they have a sexual orientation. Everybody. Christians included, even the most conservative.
Yes. There is no opposite to heterosexual. There is no opposite to that. That is God's design. We've labeled God's design, his creation, as heterosexual. So if we take the label away, right? What do we have? Just what God designed. And if we understand that the opposite of heterosexual is not homosexual, the opposite of homosexual is redeemed. The opposite of homosexual is justified. The opposite of homosexual is freed from that bondage. And that's where we have to get. We have to stop believing words matter. And we have to stop believing what the enemy has impressed upon us.
So, David, what do you say to someone who says, okay, David, I accept that. Those are all wonderful theological words, but I'm not theological like you are. I'm not a Christian like you are. I'm just a gay man who wants to be able to get a loan from the bank and not be discriminated against. What do you say to that?
I tell him that he's just a man that desperately needs a real, true, intimate relationship with another man to see that void within him can be met without engaging in sexual activity with another man.
Mhm.
That's my response. I've had the question many a times, and that's always been my response. My response is always, listen, you don't have sexual desires. You don't have the desire to engage in sex with men. You have a desire to have an intimate relationship with another man, which is what I believe all men and women are built for. That we are created as part of our design to have intimate relationships with those of the same sex. But we've been duped, again, words matter, to believe that intimacy means sexual. So if a child, which is how they're duping, they're bamboozling all of the children, and it's quite easy to do so, because even as a child, and I was in school 45 years ago, right? When I first went to school, when you have a desire to be close to somebody of the same sex, especially those of us who didn't have a father in our lives, which is pretty much the majority of this rainbow movement, but and the criminal movement as well. If you go into the prison, you can find out that the majority of them men didn't have a father in their life either, or a positive good father. But the whole thing is if you can make a child believe that desire they have to be close to another boy is either romantic and or sexual, then you've convinced them that they have a sexual orientation and that their sexual orientation is homosexual. When you can make a man like, and I don't pat myself on the back, and even when it's been said to me, the few times it has been said to me, David, you changed me. No, I didn't change you. Jesus the Christ changed you. I didn't do anything but follow the lead of the Holy Spirit of the one true living God. But they say, no, David, you did it. You created this relationship and you filled this void. It's like I didn't have any desires to have sex with you. You met all of my needs without engaging in sexual activity. And so that's why it's so important for the church to wake the hell up and stand the hell up and do something. Because if we don't start establishing some relationships with these men, they'll never understand what being a man is. Because what they understand being a man to be right now is machoism, right? Not even masculinity, because masculinity is not toxic. Machoism is toxic. So they understand being a man to be macho and engaging in homosexual activity. That's not what being a man is. Being a man and establishing intimate relationships with other men. Because, and I've known this, I've seen this happen over the last, what, 15, 16 years. I've seen it happen. I've seen men walk away from the rainbow cult because they've finally had clarity that intimacy wasn't sex, and that they could have close, intimate relationships with other men and not engage in sexual activity. And once you accept that you're a homosexual, especially, you draw a line in the sand, and there's nothing for you beyond that line. So it's coming to the point where you can say, I'm going to step over that line and see what is available to me. And because we know, like, I fell away in 2021, and it was for a short period, but it was for, I fell away nonetheless. And I think with me, it was really, I'd never been just a moral homosexual, because homosexuality is immoral, right? So I thought that I could combine the two, and I got angry with the church and with people in the church, and then I ran from the church, and I stepped outside of God's will, but he used that. He allowed me to see so much more because it was for a purpose, right? He allowed me to see, much like I've said to you, even to you, embraced me. They were calling me up and texting me and saying, "Hey, let's have coffee. Let's do lunch. I need your input on this bill. What do you think about? Would you come to the state house and would you give testimony? Would you come and just really shock them?" And this was what I did for that whole year. And then I said, "Wait a minute." God reeled me back in. I did cross over that line and realize that there's so much more for me outside of that box that I put myself in. I didn't have to be a non-active homosexual, which is what we saw with like Ravi Zacharias. His right hand guy was claimed to be homosexual, but not participate in homosexuality because it's a sin. Well, he accepted that false identity. And so once you release yourself of that false identity, then you can be made free. And so the lesson for me was to see that all of the legislators and all of the pastors went silent on me after I said homosexuality is a sin and I'm not a homosexual. I will no longer claim that false identity.
So to drive the point home, David, you dropped out 2 or 3 times during your narrative there, and some important things that you said were kind of missed. I don't know if something's going on. Maybe something is on your computer that you could turn off that's interfering with your signal. I'm not sure.
I don't
with your Wi-Fi. But anyway, the point you're making is that in 2021 you decided to experiment in terms of your ideology with the thought that you could live a moral homosexual life. So prior to that, when I knew you, and we were working together here in Maine and around the country, you weren't thinking that way. You believed that what you had done in the past as a transsexual, becoming a woman, living as a woman, having sex, et cetera, you believed all of that was immoral.
Right.
But then in 2021, you decided to experiment with the idea that, well, maybe there is such a thing as a moral homosexual, right? I think that's
exactly.
What you said.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So you did that. You did it for a year or so. You found a bunch of the Protestant Christian leadership in Maine, as well as the political leadership in Maine, loved you. They all of a sudden fell in love with you, and you became very important to them. You became a tool, a weapon in their hands, right?
Yep, exactly.
That's what you said. That's what you said. And so, and then you came to your senses and you realized, well, wait a second, there is a moral law and I don't get to define what it is. It exists outside of me. And it clearly states that sex outside of marriage, and especially sex with the same gender, is very immoral.
Right.
Orthodox Christianity teaches that homosexuality is the sin that cries to heaven for vengeance. I love that. I love that idea. Wow. It's a sin, the sin. I think there's 1 or 2 others, but it's the sin that cries. It's emotional, cries to heaven for vengeance.
Wow.
And if you choose to come up with any kind of ideology that just pushes that reality, that truth, that fact that's woven into the universe away from your consciousness, then you end up, right, like having the experiences that you've had through your life. And but if a civilization does that, a town or a city,
God forbid,
if it falls to that point where a city does that and puts it into its laws, even Paul the Apostle teaches this in Romans chapter 1. This is so easy. This is so simple. If a civilization, so there's the personal thing, right, David? The person, which is where you spend most of your time ministering one-on-one to people who want to change. They want,
right. Yes,
I,
yes, yeah.
they want to belong. I spent my whole life, 40 years, thinking about this issue from inside of the law, inside of politics, inside of the government. That's where I spent my time. And you know, when we lost the battle, it was when in Maine, we were winning the battle when we were talking about the law, when we were talking about civilization, when we were talking about politics, when we were talking about philosophy, when we were talking about theology, when I was talking about all those things publicly with NPR, Maine Public Radio, Channel 13, all of them. I mean, I was in the news a lot, and they hated me for it, but they did have to cover me. And those were the things I talked about. I didn't talk about how butthurt you felt because you were homosexual and you came out of homosexuality, and now you realize how much you missed, being loved by somebody or whatever. All that stuff's important in terms of at the personal and emotional level. All that stuff's important. It's real. But look, it's not politics. It's not the law. It's not government. It's not the layer that creates and maintains civilization over generations.
And it has become what it's been, or should I say it's been injected into everything. Thoughts and feelings. It's an emotional investment now. Politics, emotional investment.
Yeah, it's all emotion.
Everything is thoughts and feelings. That's it.
And educate our schools, our public schools in Maine. That's all that matters now.
Yeah.
Oh, we got to make sure little Johnny feels good. And if little Johnny doesn't feel good, then maybe he's gay. And he's only like 7 years old.
Yeah.
Well, maybe.
Now it doesn't even matter. I mean, the Barbara Bush Hospital was doing it at 8 years old to the kids, giving them puberty blockers until the NHS made the ruling that 7 years old, 8 years old, that's too old. Now they can do it to the infants and the toddlers. So, I mean,
here's something really important that we need to talk
about. Where do we go from here?
Talk about. Well, I'll tell you, we need to talk about this in Maine, and that's a man named Michael G. Hine. You know who he is. I know who he is. Most people don't know who he is, but he's got 2,000 followers on X, and he's using that platform to destroy people of goodwill right now.
Yeah.
People like Tim Bodnar, who is the truth slinger. He's using that small little audience that he spun up on X to destroy good people, men and women who are emerging from this confusion over sexual orientation. I mean, you want to watch some powerful media. Go and scroll Tim Bodnar's feed at TruthSlinger X. Go scroll back a week or two and watch that man emote while his wife is maybe on the verge of madness or death.
Yeah.
And it comes on very suddenly for him, and he lives out loud on X. I mean, he posts everything, posts about everything. I've never gone that deep into social media like Tim has. But Hine, who used to work for me for 6 years, has dedicated himself on his X channel to destroying that man's life and his wife's life. It's so deep, hurtful, and full of hate.
Yeah. It's thoughts and feelings. It's all emotional, investment. It was day one. Is the first day I popped on the Tim show to actually in the chat and actually spoke and said, "Hey everyone, how you doing?" That was the day it started, that I started receiving the messages from Hine. Just
is that how you met him? Was that the first time?
He says now Hine said, I believe in his messages, I would have to go back and see, but I believe he said something like we've met before, or we've been to the same event, or whatever. But oh man, it was just like for me, it was one, and it's kind of weird because I've said for years, even before I got rescued, from the world, I've said you just can't trust anyone who isn't kind to animals, right? And I start getting these messages from this man, and they're just, it's almost like he was trying like I could read into the messages like some kind of compassion for me, like he wanted to protect me, right? And I was like, okay. And even the wording, like, you don't want to get involved with this guy, David. You don't want to do it, you know. But then it really hit me after a few days of it. What really hit me was, wow, this is what people do to me, to other people about me. They start sending all these screenshots and or like even like little video clips of me saying something, but it's not the whole thing. It's just like 20 seconds of what I was actually talking about. And they start, see, I told you this man he's a registered sex offender. He's a repeat this, he's a repeat that, he's a this, he's a that, he's a rapist. All of these things. And I was like, wow, wait a minute, this guy's doing to me exactly what all of those other hateful people do.
Yeah, doing to Tim, right? He's doing to Tim.
He's doing it. Yeah, he's sending me all these messages about Tim the same way that these people do this to me. I mean, I lost 2 good jobs. I can't get hired in this entire area because the corporations that I worked at were bombarded. And it was actually Sean McBriarty that called me up and said, David, did you see Reddit? And I was like, what is Reddit? I didn't even know what Reddit was at the time. And he said, it's the cesspool of social media. And I was like, I never heard of it. And I went on there and I typed in my name, and I was so shocked. And I don't even know how I felt. I was angry. I was really angry when I saw like my name, my address, my picture, where I worked at, the numbers to the corporations that I worked at, who to call, emails, tell them they got to get rid of this guy, and this is why, a whole list of things, past criminal things and made up things, because they're really good at that, stating untruths matter of factly, so they seem factual. But yeah, and I lost 2 good jobs because of that. And that's all I saw after a few days of getting messages from behind, and I even entertained his chat a little bit back and forth. And it was pretty dark. I mean, it's really, really dark to have that kind of hatred for one person. And I've been trying to figure that out for years. Me and Sean used to talk about that all the time, because we used to be, we were attacked by pretty much the same people on X. And I left X. I just canceled. I closed my account completely and just reopened it when I was redeemed again. But it was pretty dark. I don't understand my mind.
I mean, Sean McBriarty killed himself.
Yes, he did. And
he committed suicide. How old was he? He was in his late 40s, maybe?
He was in his 40s. And Sean called me up and he says, how do you do it? He says, I know, because he received so much backlash because he had me on his show and because he came on my show. And he pushed and promoted me, and he showed up and went at the state hearings when I showed up, and we we'd go out to lunch. And Alvin Louis too, he got a whole bunch of backlash about associating with me, with David Arthur. Oh my gosh, he's a registered sex offender. Oh my gosh. And Sean said, how do you do it? He says, I know the kind of what I get, right? I know all the demonic stuff that's coming at me. And I know that towards you, it's even worse. How do you do it? And I told him, I was like, man, I just don't care what people think, what people feel, because I was on my deathbed. So if you've never been on your deathbed and accepted the fact that your life was over, and then God touches you and raises you up and puts your feet on solid ground and sends you out on a mission, until you have experienced that, you really can't understand the fact when the scripture says, you know, what can man do to me? I fear no man. And that's pretty much where I'm at. It's like, it's just like, you know, I don't care what people think, what people feel. I tell my own family that, and they get ticked off at me. And they're like, but I don't care what you think, and I don't care what you feel. I care what truth is. I care about facts.
Amen.
What the truth is. And that's what I care about.
And the fact is, David, that any politician that isn't going to trumpet the idea that sexual orientation needs to be ripped out of the main Human Rights Act isn't worth the time of day.
It does. It really does.
Laurel Libby, Bobby Charles, John Bush, I don't care who it is, and I don't care how much money they have. If they're not willing to go public and say that we have got to fix this at the root here in Maine. And
they don't want to offend their family members. They don't want to offend their constituents. They don't want to offend their donors.
Exactly.
Because the majority of them have accepted and embraced homosexuality as an orientation.
And their donors are manipulated by the Jews.
Exactly.
The Jews in the West have got to be studied. All the way back to the time of Jesus Christ. They have got to be studied. We have got to stop thinking that if we hear someone like me say the Jews instead of Zionism, you know, if somebody like me who refuses to make this distinction between Israel and Zionism and the Jews, look, this is where I make the distinction, David. When I say the Jews, I don't mean every single individual Jewish person. I don't mean that. I mean, Mary, the mother of Jesus, was Jewish. Paul was Jewish. They were all Jewish. Jesus himself was Jewish. I don't mean every single.
You're talking about the religious sect, right?
I'm talking about the religion or the ethnicity. This is the funny thing about them. It's not funny. It's pure evil. It's diabolical. They will put on the hat of religion when it suits them, and they'll put on the hat of ethnicity when that suits them.
Amen.
And the whole reason they do that is to confuse everybody. And, well, I'm Jewish by birth. I'm Jewish by ethnicity. I didn't have any choice in the matter. Or if it works for them to represent it as Judaism as a theology, as like Christianity, which is something that anybody can be, right? So Jews will play it both. They'll play it whatever way works for them. And we have got to start talking about that, because these donors who control John Bush and control Bobby Charles and have controlled them and their sensibilities and their worldview and their theology, their religious thinking, to the extent they have any, it's been controlled by this Jewish sensibility that makes everybody think, hey, who am I to judge you if you look at porn as long as you're 18 or older? Who are you? Well, if you're a Christian, that's who you are. Right. And if you're a Christian, then you have a duty to judge that behavior as evil.
Yes. It's so simple, because, I try not to watch television. But when I visit certain people, their television is always on. And I always took note to this one commercial where the guy is like, he's talking about facts about cell phone or something. He says, fact them, fact them, fact them. No, fact them. And I was like, that's so diabolical, right? Because it's people say, oh, well, there's nothing wrong with that. He's not even saying the word. Yeah, well, guess what? We all know what he's really saying. And so just recently I saw that same commercial, and they changed it. He doesn't say fact them anymore. He just says facts. And I pointed that out, and someone said to me, yeah, well, they shouldn't be censoring. I said, no, That's not a bad thing. Censorship is not a bad thing. When we're censoring or voiding out wickedness or things, right? Those thoughts and feelings that will lead us astray or in the wrong direction. So it's, I said it earlier with banning books. There's nothing wrong with banning books. If we're banning books that are evil and wicked and mean us no good, and especially that are targeted to children to sexualize them and pervert them, well, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. It's about time that people start standing up and saying, well, guess what? We need to have a good old book burning.
Men need to stand up and be men.
Exactly.
Men don't sit around and talk about transsexualism or any sexual deviancy. Men don't do that. Men, real men, righteous men, good men, they throw them out. They punch them in the face. They censor them. They deny that this is true. Yeah. And America used to do that, right up
They don't let them anywhere near their children.
Oh, they definitely don't do that. Oh my gosh. Well, this is why I loved Tim. He went to the Lincoln School Board and he read them he literally read, danced, walked with his cell phone. They got the truth.
Yeah, they did.
Jammed down their throats. He pulled he grabbed him by the hair and he pulled their head back and he jammed the truth down their gullet. And
he did.
And one school board member has already resigned over it, and they probably all need to resign.
Should have been charged.
Truth be told, right? I mean, Tim could have charged him. I don't know. I guess he decided not to. I don't know what he did.
I would have pushed it. I would have pushed it. I would have made sure. I would have made such an example out of that stooge, because that's all they are. They're just stooges.
Well, and that's true of all of our school boards. That's true of every. That's true of every layer of government, and it's very simple. Here's why. Because, and you're going to watch it again during this election cycle. The real issue here in Maine with wokeism, anything cultural that has to do with sexuality, family, marriage, any of that stuff, it comes down to two words in Maine, for sure. And I can tell you it's the truth because I lived it. Those two words are sexual orientation. If you're a politician or a lawyer or anything, if you have power and you're unwilling to publicly declare that you will fight to the death to make sure that those two words get ripped out of the Maine Human Rights Act, then I don't have time for you as a politician, as a leader, at any level, school board up to senator. That's what's got to happen in America. We have got to rip that out of our anti-discrimination thinking.
I wish I could.
We have a duty to discriminate against evil.
Yeah, that's right. I wish I could pull it up now. It was the last email that I sent to all of the legislators, Senate and reps, and I said just that. I said I said just that. I said their blood is on your hands. I says I'm done with you. Don't contact me, because one of them popped up out of nowhere and said, "Oh, would you come down and speak for the so we can get rid of get rid of gender identity off the Maine Human Rights Act?" And I didn't even respond to that email. I just deleted it. And then I sent an email to all of them, and I said, "Listen," I said, "I am so done. Do not ever contact me again, asking me if I will come down." I said, "I've been telling you all for years that gender identity, that first of all, sexual orientation was the Trojan horse for gender identity." I says, and that led to so much perversion and to so many children being sacrificed to this cult, and so many children right now, especially young girls, living lives where they will never give birth because they've had their insides removed and they've had their healthy breasts removed, and all these boys running around and they're all effeminized because they've been fed all of this soy boy and wrong sex hormone garbage. But I said, do not contact me. I said, their blood is on your hands. I said, I've been saying
Good
this
for
for
you.
years. For years, I've
You
been
and I,
saying this.
you and I need to launch a campaign today to make this happen. We
I
need to
still have
call
main
on.
resistance.
Yeah. Oh, good. Oh, wow.
I still legally have main resistance. It's one of my DBAs. So
Okay. Well, what say you, my man? Because I'm all over it. I'm ready. Let's do it.
I'm ready to do it. You know, I have some things here that are holding me back from getting away for too long right now, but everything here is
That's
getting
all right. We can
healed up.
listen. We can put together a team. Main resistance.
Yeah.
Rip sexual orientation out of the Humane Human Rights Act. We got to keep it simple. That's
because
the
if
point.
that comes out, everything, the rest of the nonsense goes. You know,
Yeah.
it's like people don't understand with like, they think that, and I'm guilty. I used to say that social emotional learning, SEL, was the Trojan horse for all of this perversion, but it really wasn't. The Trojan horse in the government institutions that they call the public schools, that was the from back in the 60s and 70s when they started embracing homosexuality as a sexual orientation.
It was the sexual revolution. Okay, the sexual revolution became sexual orientation.
Yeah. So
and guess
that's
who spun up
what 40.
Guess who wrote the book entitled The Sexual Revolution? A guy who lived in Maine, died in Pennsylvania. He was put in prison by Janet Mills's father when he served as Attorney General, and his name was Wilhelm Reich. He wrote the book in the 1930s in Vienna, Austria, entitled The Sexual Revolution. And he published it in Vienna. He got in so much trouble with the communists and the fascists that he got thrown out. He ended up in New York City. He was on vacation with his wife in the Rangeley area of Maine, and he loved it so much because he stayed at a camp on a lake, and he looked up into the blackened sky because there was no lights from the city, and he could see that this was the place where he could harness the sexual orgasmic energy in the atmosphere, and he could focus it to change the weather and all of that. I mean, the guy had become kind of off his rocker by this time. Yeah. This was in the 1940s, and he hired as his lawyer Janet Mills's father, Paul Mills, and his lawyer Paul Mills served as his personal lawyer through the 40s, and then in the 50s he gained power and he became the district attorney, whatever, the federal attorney for New England. And when he became the federal attorney, it became his duty to destroy Wilhelm Reich, his client, who he had actually legally set up with his foundation and all that kind of stuff. So he turned on Reich, and he put Reich in prison, and Reich killed himself.
Wow.
So, and
I never knew that.
That's our current governor, by the way. That's her roots in Maine. That's the character of the Mills family. That's what we're dealing with here. It's very diabolical what we're dealing with, and sexual orientation needs to be ripped out of the Maine.
It really
does
because it's
rights.
A non-existent thing.
And it doesn't exist.
It doesn't.
All
exist, exactly.
All it does is create confusion for people. You know what's hilarious to me is we've been going now for 45 minutes on YouTube, right? YouTube is the biggest video platform in the universe, and you know how many viewers we have according to StreamYard? We have 0. I just want to say to you, YouTube, I wear that as a bad. I love that you are using your algorithms to make sure nobody.
Don't let it get to you. Look, Mike, I'm telling you right now. Listen. So before my falling away, I had like 30,000 subscribers. Right.
Right.
During that 2-year period, I dropped down to like, I think 1,500, something like that.
Yep.
I have. So I have just over 1,000, somewhere over 1,000 subscribers, and I might have 12 views after a year.
Yeah.
On my videos, but I don't believe it because I received more than 12 messages about how good the video was.
Yeah.
So something's off, but so definitely don't let that get to you because
I never have. That's why I'm laughing at it. I shouldn't say I never have. I mean, because I do, weigh my time. What is my time worth? Is it worth 0 views? But you're right. I mean, if it's on a screen, don't believe it, right? It's a lie. If it's on a screen, it's a lie.
Especially on a platform that we know, is hell-bent on oppressing specific voices from being heard. I mean, I don't even know how I'm still on YouTube after 15 years. I don't even know how I'm still on there, because everybody I know that has got kicked off of YouTube said something that I've already said.
Yep.
It's like I say the same things and they don't even kick me off. I think because they have this like dark cloud or this bubble around my channel.
Well, I think we have to put our hands, put our words and our lives in the hands of God. We have to trust Him more, especially when it comes to this internet stuff. And we need to get the truth out. We need to live the truth like Tim is living the truth, very bigger than we've ever lived it, especially online, I think, but also in the real world, in real life. So I have a challenge for you. Let's pick a date right now publicly so we can both hold ourselves accountable to it, to do another live stream. I'm open anytime. And let's invite all of our peoples. I'll put it on my email list. We'll let everybody know.
And I noticed too, while we were chatting, I can stream because I also have a StreamYard account. I can stream what
you can restream
right onto mine. So yeah, we can do that.
So let's pick a date and a time, and let's make the subject main resistance, and let's see who joins us, and let's see what happens. And we'll let everybody know. What do you think?
When you want to do it?
So today is Wednesday. I'm open to any day starting tomorrow. I prefer mornings.
All right. So yeah, but we'd probably, because if we're gonna get like maybe Tim and Jen to pop in, I think he goes 8 to 10.
That's right.
Yeah.
So why don't we do like 10:30?
Yeah, let's do 10:30 on. How about next Wednesday?
That works for me. Let me double check. And let's each make a commitment to one another that we're going to get the word out that what we're going to be talking about is main resistance, and the idea of sexual orientation being ripped out of the Maine Human Rights Act, and the purpose of this activism will be to put every single politician from school board level up to senator on record with regard to that proposition, that sexual orientation be repealed, that it be taken out of the law. Wherever it appears, it's removed.
I'm with that.
So that's what's got to happen. It's a very simple argument to make. We're going to get a lot of pushback, obviously, from everybody.
Yeah,
so what?
Of course. Even
so what?
Those that are supposed to be doing what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. So I really appreciate your time. We've been going for 48 minutes, broadcasting to 0 people.
It ain't 0 people, trust me. I even shared the link, so I'm telling you, people were watching.
It's been funny with X. I've never been a social media guy. I just let Facebook pass me by. But when Musk took over X, I thought, well, I'll give it a try. I'll jump in. So I paid for a year, and I got the Premium Plus, and I did a lot of posting and stuff. Watched my followers grow very slowly, painfully slowly, and then when it reached 1,000, it stopped. And then ever since it reached 1,000, it doesn't grow. It grows by maybe 1 or 2 or 3, and so it was up to 1,050. Now it's down to 1,025.
Wow.
This is the largest social media platform on earth, and it's so funny.
And I even still I went back on Facebook because of the big shit.
Right.
I went back on
Right.
Facebook, and I've been able to say things on there that I could never have said, 2-3 years ago. But I promote some of my video clips and stuff like that,
Yep.
and the majority of them get rejected.
Yep.
They get rejected as political or hate speech, and I'm like,
Yep.
really? But X has done the same thing to me.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
X has told me to remove a post because it was hate speech.
Freedom of speech, not freedom of reach. That's what we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't. If you're speaking but nobody's listening, do you have freedom of speech? Obviously not. So that whole thing is just like the word sexual orientation. It's just designed to confuse you.
Yeah.
It's designed to cause your mind to go into a dormant state so that they can just fill it full of their own insanity.
Tell you what. So before I left X in 2023, I had probably 15,000, 20,000 subscribers, right? Yeah. And you know why? Because I was a homosexual Christian man. Mm-hmm. That's why. Political man, right? That's why. Because that was the identity that I put out there at that point. And that was why I had feminists messaging me daily to be on their on their live streams. I was in the Affirmation Generation, the movie that was the documentary that was put together by the lifelong Democrat Party, and and then of course they removed me, but but all of this stuff, right? And then when I started really putting stuff out there, then the feminists turned on me. I had Jordan Peterson following me. I had so many people following me and reposting my posts, which is how the subscribers grow so quick. When somebody who has 4 million, posts one of your posts, but not one of them. I've tagged all of them in posts in the last year, and not one of them has responded, reposted, or anything.
Well, and David, that's because Jordan Peterson and everybody, when it comes to the topic of sexual orientation, they shut their brains off.
Yeah. Well, Jordan Peterson's best friend, homosexual couple who adopt children.
Like you said yesterday on Coach's show, Carol Conley, the recently retired leader of the Christian Civic League of Maine, brags about his best friend being a lesbian.
And David, I'm just going to love on her. I mean, come on now. When do we say, no, what you're doing is wrong. What you're doing is going to lead you to hell. Well, David, that's not very loving. Well, no, that is the epitome of love. Exactly. That's the epitome of love. The epitome of love is me telling you that, listen, you are going to burn in hell. You're going to burn. You're going to be damned. Right. That's the epitome of love. The epitome of love is me telling you something that's going to piss you off and make you turn around and walk out of my life and have nothing to do with me until you come to your crossroad and you can't turn to no one around you because they've all embraced your darkness. And so the only person you're going to be able to come to, and the only people, and I think why I say that so much is because I want people to understand, especially parents and friends, right? Oh, my friend is trans. I don't want to hurt her feelings. Well, that's too bad, because if you truly were her friend, if you truly care about somebody, if you truly love them, you're going to tell them the truth that's going to make them walk out of your life.
Yep.
Do not compromise. Billy can't be Betty. Do not compromise. You can't call your grandson her or them or they. That's how demons in the scriptures, that's how demons refer to themselves, by the way. But you can't compromise, because if you do not compromise, so what if they walk out of your life? Stop being selfish. It's like, let them walk out of your life. When they get to that crossroad, you're going to be the only person they can turn to. And that's how I look at it, because that helps me be firm. You know, there's a lot of people that I associate with that have walked out. That, oh no, I don't want to hear that. You know, and if that's it, that's it. But when they come to their crossroad, if they ever come to their crossroad, maybe I'll be the one they turn to. You know, but we cannot compromise. We can't compromise. We can't embrace darkness. It's like, how many what do they say? Like, you can't walk with God if you're dancing with the devil.
That's right.
And that's the truth. You just can't.
There is such a thing as good and evil. There is such a thing as the moral law.
Amen.
And it is implanted into every human person at their birth, by creation, by God, and they spend their entire lifetime dealing with it.
Amen.
I don't care
and
where
you know,
they
that
live.
was one of the biggest issues I had with Charlie Kirk. Was
Yeah,
that
me
he
too.
platformed
I did.
homosexuals, and
Yeah,
I was posting,
I
I
wouldn't
was
pay any
sending
attention to
messages. Yeah, I was sending emails almost daily. I was posting about it and tagging them in it. I was just like, you have to understand, you got to stop platforming homosexuals. And then somebody from Turning Point had reached out and said, you know, we're focusing on, when we do that, we're talking about the conservative movement, not the Christian movement. And I said, oh wow, okay. And I thought, that's kind of good. I'm going to run with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought about it for a while. And I was like, oh, okay, so it's okay for homosexuals in the conservative movement, but it's not okay for them in the Christian movement. And I know that they're two different movements, right? Because the conservative movement is not Christian. And not all Christians are conservative.
Why isn't it though? Why
isn't
it though?
I know why isn't it, but it's not, right? But it's just, it makes me think, especially the last couple months, and especially the last few weeks, actually, I should say, since Charlie's assassination. But since that, it's really made me think, like, you know, I was like all for it, and now I'm kind of like, wait a minute, they can't be embraced by Christians in any movement.
No, that's right.
They can't be platformed by Christians in any movement.
What we're dealing with here is our Talmudic ethics. So ethics that are taken not from the Torah, not from the Bible, not from the Old or New Testament, but ethics that are taken from the Talmud, which is the book that the Jews finalized after 1,000 years after Christ, in the early part of the second millennium. They finalized it in Europe, and the Pope was so scandalized by it that he had it burned. He said, you need to round up all these Talmuds that you tell me about, and they need to be burned, because in the Talmud it says Jesus is in his own in hell forever, burning in his own urine or his own feces or something.
Oh my gosh!
But it's just gross what's in it, and right. The Talmud is not the Bible. It's not the Old Testament. It's not the New Testament. It's not the Torah. But nobody can talk about that, right? And if you do bring it up, the Jews have so much money and so much power in Maine that the people that you bring it up to will immediately pivot to eschatology and say, oh, the Jews, right? the Jews are, Israel Jews.
Oh, and so I got to tell you, before we leave out, I recently did I was recently on someone's little podcast or live stream, and they wanted to talk about my testimony. They wanted to talk about mostly, and they emphasized, we want to talk about the transgender,
Yeah.
And
well, that's the only thing we're allowed to talk about now.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, they want to attack the transgender movement, but they don't want to call out the homosexual movement, right? And right. Well, same, different demons, right? Different gods, but same version. So yeah. I waited a while, and then when we neared or past the halfway mark, I said, oh, and you know what? There's also, you can go on my website and you can check out the Homosexual Manifesto and the 1972 Gay Rights Platform and the overhauling of straight America. And I started reading like excerpts and I saw his face, and he was like, and after the show, he said, "You know what he said to me?
What?
You just had to go after the homosexuals, didn't you?" So, well, yeah, we all should be, right?
No, I'll tell you. I'll tell you. You're going to be surprised when we do this next week. You're going to be surprised by who isn't there, because this movement in Maine, it has decided, this conservative movement has pretty much consolidated around the idea that this is the one thing you don't talk about.
Yep.
You're allowed to talk about women in sports. You're allowed to talk about transgenders. But what you and I are saying right here, and what we're committing ourselves to do next Wednesday, we're probably going to be it for a while, you and me, which is fine with me. It's fine with me.
I know there's some that are really in this battle. I mean, hardcore in the battle, and they don't want to. One, they don't want to get into the whole homosexual sexual orientation thing. But two, some of them don't want to get involved because of me. You know, so they have their own personal thoughts.
Yeah,
feelings.
That'll fade away instantly. Yeah. That's not going to hold water, because you're thinking straight, right? You're thinking straight right now. And you've lived through it. You've tried you've taken their pill. You've experienced it for yourself, trying to be a moral homosexual, right? Or a conservative homosexual.
Yeah. And you know what? God let me walk away from the fold to what? To show me so much more than I could have known back then.
Oh yeah.
Before
that's the way life works.
Yeah. And because it was like, I never wanted to be in the political realm. I never wanted to be in certain realms. And I definitely never thought about being a gay Christian, because I was like, that doesn't exist. How can you be that? But when I walked away from the fold and tried it, he let me see firsthand that around every single corner was perversion.
Yeah.
Every single time that I thought I found a godly man, as soon as we were outside of the ear's reach, you know, or where nobody could hear us or see us, it was perversion. It was, you know, and I'll tell you, Mike, what was the final straw for me? There was two quote unquote pastors who are quote unquote married and raising children together, two men. And 4 of their 6 children are trans, and the other 2 are queer or non-binary. But they invited me for dinner, and I went for dinner, and they had a whole lot more on their mind. I had to physically fight my way through. I had to actually physically lift one up and toss him across his living room to get out of there. And that was when I drove. That was the final straw for me. And I'm driving away, and I'm like bawling my eyes out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I'm thinking in my head, like, I hope it's not too late. I hope it's not too late. And I pulled over, and I could almost see this vision in my head of the Father.
Yeah.
And he's standing at the edge of the road, and his arms are wide open. He's like, just come home, David.
Right.
Just come
home. That's the way Christianity is.
Exactly. You know, and he's like,
the way it works.
Come home. And from that point on, it was like I just automatically recognized or knew that there is no identity in that. It's a false identity. It's like putting on a mask. And it's perversion, and it's no different than any other perversion. I mean, of course, we know that, and I know what you're going to say, because let me tell you what else I automatically knew at that point as well, was that that homosexuality was being sodomy, right? Was equal to bestiality, was equal to that. The deviant, lewd, lascivious sexual sins against our bodies and others. So it was all in the same cesspool. And there was absolutely no way that you can go into that cesspool and take a cup of it out and make it clean.
It's a form of violence.
Yes.
It fits into the category of violence, and
very
especially when
violent.
you're and especially when you're talking about doing this to children.
Yes.
It's this is why the church teaches that it's a sin that cries out to heaven for vengeance, because when people wake up from it, it's sometimes very hard for them to go on without becoming violent themselves.
Right.
And God himself became violent against the 5 cities of the plain, Sodom, Gomorrah, and the other 3 cities.
Right.
That were around the Dead Sea, and he destroyed them from heaven. He destroyed them. We don't want to put Maine. I won't. I never have lifted a finger or done anything or thought a thought since my beginning years, my early years at the Christian Civic League of Maine, that Maine could come anywhere near approving of this idea of sexual orientation.
No.
I have never, ever,
Nope.
ever entertained a thought.
When I first met you, people didn't believe the things that I was telling them. Even when we did the referendum, people that I was talking to outside of the town hall collecting signatures, they didn't believe
Look,
that I told them was coming.
When I ran for governor, I ended up in someone's house where the wife whose son had become a tranny blamed me. I'm in their living room. Blamed me for her son's trannyism, and her argument was I was mean. I was mean because I told the truth at the Christian Civic League of Maine, which is what the pastors told me, by the way, before I resigned. And basically the institution, that's what it told me. It said, your tone and style, Mike, you're radioactive, you're mean, you're not nice. You've got to be nice. And so I run for governor in 2021. I'm sitting in the living room with this family that went back decades with me. They knew me. They had helped us in previous campaigns. And they said, imagine yourself in that position. I hadn't changed. I didn't move. I was simply standing on the principle that the gospel teaches about marriage and family and sexuality.
They were just looking for a reason to, yeah. I've seen it. I've seen it over the last 10, 15 years. I've seen it. I've seen families walk away from the church completely because of their children's sin.
Yep.
And they blame the church, or they blame their pastor, or they blame me, or they blame you. It's somebody else's fault. It's always somebody else's fault.
It's just fault. They're victims. That's why we've got to
victim mentality.
We probably need to repeal the whole Human Rights Act, because we got to stop living as victims.
That's
thinking that the government exists to swoop in and save us.
It's a dangerous place to be, and people don't get it. And that's everybody is a victim.
Yeah, and we got to stop that right now. Right now, you've got to stop that. If you're watching this, stop being a victim.
Amen.
Get involved. Let's get sexual orientation ripped out of that Human Rights Act, and then let's move on to save Maine. And that's going to be one of the first steps we have to take to save Maine. If we don't take that step, then God is going to continue to walk away from us. Amen. He's not going to walk toward us. He's going to continue to walk. He's walking away right now. He's walking away. He's not looking at Maine. He doesn't.
I pray he don't just snip that rope.
Yeah. So, well, listen, you've been very generous with your time, and we're going to do next Wednesday at 10:30. I'm going to be emailing you. We'll do some brainstorming, and but I will start letting people know, and we'll be 10:30 next Wednesday talking about Maine resistance, ripping sexual orientation out of the Maine Human Rights Act. I've been with David Arthur this last hour and 8 minutes, and my 0 viewers on YouTube. So thank you, 0 viewers, for watching. And we'll look forward to seeing you next Wednesday.